Greetings everyone, and welcome to today's Expert Ed session, where we will be talking about Edge AI and the SAS-ClearBlade partnership. Myself, Vaishak, I'm an analyst at QKS Group, specializing in the IoT and edge computing domain, and I will be the moderator for this discussion. So joining me from QKS side is Narayan Gokhale. Narayan, if you could give a quick introduction about yourself and share why we are here today.
Okay. Welcome everyone to this particular session on Edge AI and partnership between SAS and ClearBlade. We hope to have a very insightful session. To get started, quick introduction about me and about QKS Group. So my name is Narayan Gokhale. I'm the Vice President and Principal Analyst at QKS Group. So you guys and most of the audience here used to know us as Quadrant Knowledge Solutions, and just on 9th of September we rebranded ourselves to QKS Group. And we'll kind of introduce QKS Group with the context of this particular session. So QKS Group covers information technology stack as well as the enterprise software applications, but most importantly for this particular context, we cover the entire IoT and edge computing, that is from cloud to edge. So we have a lot of research topics around edge management and orchestration, edge development platforms, edge AI, edge analytics. And on the IoT side, we cover industrial IoT platforms, Internet of Medical Things, smart buildings IoT platforms, as so on and so forth. We also cover industrial operations software such as MES, product lifecycle management, enterprise asset management, asset performance management, application lifecycle management, and also the engineering technologies that go with it. So this is a very, very short introduction about Quadrant Knowledge Solutions. I think let's get started with this particular topic. So over to you, Vaishak. Would you kind of throw light about the Spark Matrix study that we did, and then get all the panelists introduced?
Yeah, so to set the context for today's discussion, we have recently done a Spark Matrix project on IoT edge analytics platforms. So now a Spark Matrix is a proprietary framework by QKS Group where we visually map vendors on the basis of technology excellence and customer impact. So what we do is, we shortlist the top leading vendors in a particular market, and then we give them ratings based on custom criteria. And now for this particular project on IoT edge analytics platforms, ClearBlade and SAS were recognized as top leaders. So now what is interesting is that, ClearBlade and SAS are also partners and work closely in many areas. So as part of our expert edge discussions, we thought that this would be a perfect opportunity to maybe catch up and dive into some really interesting topics related to edge AI and the partnership dynamics. So let me introduce the panelists here today. So I'm excited to have with me from ClearBlade, we are joined by Eric Simoni and Aaron Alsbrook. And from the SAS, we have Josh Becker and Steve Ink. So I think I will allow the panelists to give a quick intro, so maybe Josh could start and then hand it over to Steve, Eric, and Aaron, respectively.
Thanks, Vaishak. Yep. Again, Josh Becker here from SAS. I am the Senior Global Director and Head of the IoT Commercial Team at SAS. What that means, I run a global team of business development executives that are looking at forming valuable differentiated partnerships like our partnership with ClearBlade to bring net new IoT capabilities to market in areas that may be underserviced or white space in the IoT market. I've been at SAS coming up on 15 years. My background is in mechanical engineering, reliability engineering specifically. So I have a degree in mechanical engineering and a master's in business, and was a SAS user for about 12 years before I came over to SAS. So I've been working with SAS Analytics for a very long time. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Yep. My name is Steve Ink. I'm a Senior Manager of IoT Consulting at SAS, and I've delivered analytical consulting projects for 20 plus years. The last 8 or so has all been real-time analytics. So things like How do we improve HVAC efficiency, the operation of solar farms? How do we optimize manufacturing plants and use electronic health records to make better decisions for patients? So exciting things, and trying to get all of that technology to make it easier and easier to do that and more. So I'll turn it over to Eric.
Sure. Thanks, Steve. I'm Eric Simoni, CEO and co-founder with Aaron at ClearBlade. Oh gosh, we've been at the IoT and edge space for well over a decade at this point, so probably a little more. And we're solely focused on IoT and edge. So Aaron and I kind of came up with this mission many years ago to create software that can run in any cloud, any edge, and stream data from any device, and partner with companies like SAS that are best in breed on what they do. My background is I'm a computer science nerd from back in the day, ex-IBM, cut my teeth on mainframe computing, doing air traffic control in the late 80s, and then moved on to client server computing and did a stint in the Bay Area and did a startup in the 90s. So I've been around the block a few times, and one thing I've learned is you hire fantastic engineers and you get out of their way and let them create. And I'll hand it off to one of those engineers, Aaron 𝐿sbrook.
Thank you guys for having me today. Aaron 𝐿sbrook, I'm co-founder and CTO with Eric. My background education-wise was computer engineering and electrical engineering, so very much in this hardware IoT space. And then most of my career has been around building applications. So I'm the original architect of our platform on our edge, helping solve the scalability and the security and the flexibility, all those things that go on to it. Obviously, most of my time today is trying to make sense of this ecosystem and how do we put it in place and how do we make the stories work for the use cases. It's not always about the technology, it's about these use cases and solving problems. And so very excited with SAS and how we're working together, and appreciate QKS putting us together and showing what we're capable of.
Yeah. So I think let's start with the partnership dynamics of SAS and ClearBlade. Now, ClearBlade has a strong expertise in processing and normalizing data at the edge, while SAS specializes in the analytics side. And I think this is what makes your solution unique, that you have expertise in these different aspects. So Josh, maybe if you could throw some lights on how this partnership dynamics works, and how do the two solutions work together to drive value?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, 𝐕𝐲𝐬. So we've been working together for several years, and it's proven to be a very powerful partnership. I like to say the Internet of Things opened seemingly countless opportunities, right, when it became more mainstream. But along with those opportunities came new and unique challenges that we hadn't considered before, new potential risks that we hadn't considered before. For example, what if my assets are mobile and they're moving through various types and quality of connectivity? If my operations now are suddenly reliant on that stream of data from those assets, how do I manage the various styles of connectivity? How do I deal with no connectivity in certain instances? What if my assets are highly distributed geographically? How can I thoughtfully and economically handle the volume and velocity of data that's coming off of those assets? Do we backhaul everything, or do we make better decisions about what we backhaul? How do we handle the costs associated with that? My facilities, for example, if we're talking about manufacturing, my facilities are comprised of a wide variety of equipment, new, very technologically advanced equipment, aged equipment. How do I begin to handle all the different protocols and various levels of asset intelligence that I have in one of our facilities? So I think our solution, our combined offering, provides a very elegant, practical, and ultra agile solution to many of these challenges. ClearBlade has most certainly mastered the edge, right? They can enable access and management of data virtually anywhere. And SAS specializes in leveraging data for real-time decisioning and value creation. So it's a beautiful marriage in that way. Our analytics thrive in data-rich environments, and ClearBlade enables us to access those data-rich environments. Together, we can truly accelerate what I call that vision to value timeline for our joint customers. And really eliminating one of the pitfalls of IoT, and that's investing heavily in what ultimately ends up just being a science project. What we really want to do is put that into practice, put it into production, and drive tangible financial returns for our organization. And I really believe that we've done that here.
Yeah, I think one of the real benefits here is the ability to move beyond traditional data silos, because even when we were talking with some of the end users, what we could see is that often organizations struggle with fragmented data across different systems, and maybe having an integrated approach like the one you are offering could really streamline decisions and operations. So maybe Steve, if you could also pitch in here and give your take on do you think are the key principles on bringing such solutions together in order to drive value for the end users?
Yeah, for sure. So no, it's a complicated process, right? From getting data ingested from all these assets to then making sense of that data, analyzing it. It's a big process, and so obviously, if you think about our partnership, right, with ClearBlade, we do our part, right, which is the analytics, and we make it easy to deploy analytics on this data, but really it relies first on getting good data out of that equipment, right? And connecting to all those sensors. And so we've worked a lot with ClearBlade to pull that data out of that sensors, make sense of it, get it so it's kind of like a digital twin of that assets. And so Aaron and his team has been a huge help in making that happen in the Intelligent Assets platform. And so Aaron, yeah, I mean, if you want to talk a little bit about what all you guys have built, like, because we rely on it, and it's really nice to integrate with.
Yeah, I mean, I love this partnership because really it kind of shows so much depth. There's plenty of people that can claim a flag across all these sorts of capabilities, but we're two companies that have been doing this for a long time, and it really does take depth to understand the problem. And SAS has been so much fun to work with because the moment we show them what we're capable of, they immediately have this vision of here is how we can take this into these different use cases, manufacturing, healthcare. And so really it lets us, again, we focus on what we're able to do, which is unlock this data stream and say, here it is. And we put it in a structure for you. We can make it available to your customers. But now how do we really achieve some of this automation and this intelligence that we want to put back into it down to very specific use cases? So for us, when we look at the partnership, it's just so much breadth of experience that can immediately drop back in, because the moment they see where we're putting our customers and the capabilities we're giving them, their minds open up to what they can do and what their tooling can basically automatically enrich back into the customer experience. So for us, that partnership, that combination was killer, right? We were really excited.
Yeah, and then once we get that data from Intelligent Assets, then we can kind of pull from the breadth of the SAS capabilities and make it easy to get analytics into that system. So we pull that data. You've set up your digital twin in ClearBlade. We pull that data out. We make it easy to kind of figure out what analytics to deploy and then push that back into ClearBlade. And then you've got all the capabilities there to alert and visualize and things like that. So it's been exciting. And then deploying becomes its own thing. How do we get it out to the edge? How do we get it into the hands of folks out on the edge? So that's another great partnership area.
Yeah, I'll add to that. So one of the things that I really appreciate is we stick to our swim lanes, right? So one thing that Aaron has always been great at in team, anytime their CEO comes with some crazy idea on what he wants to build, he's like, no, we're going to be specializing in this, right? We want to specialize in software that connects any piece of equipment, streams data into partners like SAS that are specialists at what they do. They're the OG analytics company. They're the OG AI company, right? So we can do the inferencing at a company that has spent decades doing this, while we focus on making that software interoperable, flexible, and easy to work with. So again, one of the things we benefited from was obviously SAS's expertise, but the fact that they took the initiative and worked with our software and really liked what we had to show them. So that the innovation went very quick. This space is extremely complex. Anyone that studied IoT or edge for the last decade, it's really hard to figure out. Then you add in AI, you add in digital twins. There's plenty for us to do on our end, right, to make this easier. But you have to then partner with the companies that do their part really well, and then make it easy for the customer to use these joint solutions to drive business value.
Yeah, I think great. Yeah, so I think these partnership dynamics, I think hearing this, it's definitely looks to be a win-win kind of a situation, and I'm sure the end users would really, be very happy to kind of with your joint, go-to-market strategy. So I think moving on from the partnership dynamics, maybe if you can talk a bit about, the state of the industry or the trends. So, Josh, if
Mhm.
I may,
Sure.
ask you what are the trends that you are seeing when it comes to IoT, edge, and analytics? So, what do you see there?
Yeah, well, you got a group of guys here. This is a slippery slope because if you get us talking about what we see in the future, we may never end. But so there's a lot we can talk about here. But I think as Eric alluded to earlier, they've been at this for over a decade, right?
Hmm.
And even though they've been over at the edge for over a decade, and SAS has been, the OG of analytical capabilities for 48 years, I think we're still at the edge of the value that we can derive from the edge. So I think we're going to continue to see more and more value derived from the edge. I spoke earlier about that vision to value timeline. I think one of the other sort of subtle challenges about IoT is almost every vision that you have sounds sexy, sounds enticing, but it's really about trying to pinpoint which of these visions that we have are going to drive tangible outcomes that have a measurable impact on our business, right? It seems awesome to think about connecting everything that we have, but is that worthwhile and what's going to drive value? So I think from an analytical and edge maturity perspective, there's certainly leaders and laggards, and I think there's a lot of value to be derived from the edge yet. I think we're going to see continued adoption of private edge clouds to talk
Hmm.
about that value, and 5G networks that enable applications that will unlock another increment of value for everyone for low latency and ultra low latency use cases, right? In many cases, when we've been leveraging analytical techniques like years past, where everything's done more offline and in batch, we've reached sort of that point of diminishing returns, and the edge really opens up sort of the next echelon of value. And I think there again, we're just getting started. Those private 5G networks and private edge clouds are also going to allow enterprises to be more thoughtful about how they manage their public cloud costs, also alleviating concerns that many enterprises have about moving their data beyond their firewall, right? So I think a lot of industries have been resistant to public cloud infrastructure for that reason, and therefore maybe haven't adopted IoT capabilities that could drive potential value for their organization. This will give them another opportunity to look at that. And certainly with ClearBlade's capability to access data anywhere, we're prepared to do that for anyone. So no matter where they want to land their data, no matter where their data originates, we can implement rigorous analytics in stream that will allow them to drive value. Of course, we can't talk about predictions without talking about Gen AI. So I'll give my bit on that, and I think we're going to see more and more exploration in what I would call private generative AI, where people are leveraging small language models that are domain specific rather than large language models that are sort of crowdsourced or based on publicly available data. These will drive more efficiency into outcome specific composite AI solutions and AIoT solutions. And I also think, as one final little prediction here, I think many people have looked at IoT as an internal enabling technology, and I think we're on the verge of folks starting to look at how do we monetize IoT, right? Now we can get much closer to these assets. We can better understand their operational characteristics, and therefore we can build service contracts or service programs that would ensure our margins over time and provide valuable insights to those end customers. So I think business models will start to be formed around IoT that open up new revenue streams for enterprises. Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, no, well, obviously I agree with you, Josh, on almost everything, probably except for the Bears and Packers, but that's a different discussion, which I will lose these days. So I'll talk a little bit about the past, but more about the future. I think in the last decade, IoT and edge has been mostly failure. I'm just gonna call it, because we've been custom building these solutions for well over a decade, and it's proven to be expensive, time consuming, high failure rate. It's been a slog. And one of the things we're just maniacally focused at ClearBlade, focused on, is making that simpler, right? And I think it takes a consistent software package that's open, that's interoperable, that can plug in with other products like SAS, right? And streams data to wherever the customer wants it to go, and start to avoid this custom build by the hour, by the month, by the decade, right? That tends to go nowhere, because IoT is a lot harder than anybody imagined, right? So you've looked, see some of the biggest companies in the world have said, you know what, I'm going to move on to AI because this is too hard. And so we've got to see a new evolution of giving customer value. So where we're seeing some of the trends is the operators, the non-programmer. It's saying, I want to connect up my thing. I want to monitor this piece of equipment in the field. I want to get that data back, and I want to do something with that data, right? So we're having a ton of success, or seeing a ton of success at immediate ROI. Hey, we can put this software in place. You can define your digital twin. You can stream data from that physical twin into your digital twin, and then move that data to wherever else you want it to go, into your analytics tools, into your data warehouses, et cetera, feeding your AI. So that is starting to shift, because once operators realize, I don't have to wait on IT, or I don't have to wait on some company to build me something, I can do some of this stuff myself. And what I'm seeing too is the adoption speeding up because of AI. AI is now bringing everyone together because, hey, the fuel is the data. And we've already scraped the internet, and that's somewhat incomplete data, or obviously human biased data that we're scraping. Well, the true source of truth is machine data, right? Machine is not lying. The machine is giving you zeros and ones or whatever it is. So if you get all that data and start to analyze that data, start to use that to fuel your AI, that opens up a world of possibilities. And then you combine it with edge, like Josh was saying, I can keep my data private, I can keep it in country, I can keep it close to the device, and I can move my AI models to the edge so they're more resilient, right? So I can now stream more data, I can get faster inferencing. So this is all super exciting, but we're still way behind on getting the data, right? How do we connect up all these devices? So we've got to be better at that. I'm seeing some improvement. I see IoT making improvements. I see edge as well. I think edge lags IoT by about a few years. And while moving containers around is somewhat interesting, that all the custom built solutions I still think are a challenge. If you can give a customer a runtime, give them an application that's flexible enough to address these different vertical needs, then we can start to really address how much stuff we want to connect out there. So, we're seeing it in building energy monitoring. We're seeing it in renewable. The stuff we've done with SAS and solar is pretty fascinating. We're seeing it in oil fracking, managing and monitoring pumps out in the field. We're seeing it on corporate campuses and college campuses. A lot of this is energy related. We're seeing it in oil drilling. So moving AI models to the edge and helping with the drilling process in places like Saudi Arabia. And we're seeing it in water purification. So how do I manage the RO process on remote locations for making sure people have clean water and crops have clean water? So I think I'm really excited about the next few years, because AI has now given us this boost that says we want this data, we want to do more with the data that we have.
Okay. Yeah, and just to build quickly on something Eric said there too, I mean, bespoke versus, off the shelf. I mean, I think the approach that we've taken, ClearBlade and SAS, is really about enabling more user personas to get involved in the IoT game at an organization, right? If you watch the demo, and I'll encourage you to go watch it after we end this session, but I mean, you don't need legions of data scientists to actually put a very robust analytical model out at the edge to start deriving insights. I mean, engineers can do this, subject matter experts can do this. And I think that's extremely important when we, again, go back to the amount of investment and the time to value. We don't have time anymore with the way data is generated and the way our businesses are moving to sit around and have an 8-month programming exercise to actually derive value out of our assets. It needs to be now. And I think if you look at what we've built together, it really truly enables that.
Yeah, and I'll add one thing, because I'll be fired if I don't say Gen AI as CEO. But we have seen excellent results from from our Gen AI experiments and building it into our product, right? How do we make the product easier to use? How do we reduce time? So now the operators, instead of spending 35 to 40 minutes per task creating their digital twins and connecting their things up, they can use the Gen AI assistant to do that automatically for them. And I know that our team is experimenting now with ingesting manuals from physical devices and making connectivity easier. I'm fascinated to see where that goes. I'm a big believer in some of Gen AI and I'm a big believer in narrow AI. But when you can combine Gen AI with an actual piece of software that has a framework to it that can take those inputs, that's where the power really is, because now I can break down that barrier between human and machine and make it more natural language. Hey, I want to monitor my fleet of 57 police vehicles, and I want to see speed, tire pressure, oil pressure, and fuel level. And then you see it create all these things. That's magical to me.
Yeah.
So there, I now can keep my job for another few months.
Okay. I think that was fascinating. And as Josh, as you said, we can go on talking about the trends and the future. But I think if you can get Steve into the conversation and kind of get your perspective on, what should companies, how should companies, looking to take advantage of this machine data, edge and AI, what should they be considering? What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, now I could go from a little bit more of a technical perspective, right? We've been doing this a while, right? And you realize as you do it, there are so many different technical things you solve, right? How to speak these different protocols, how to normalize the data, how to pull together data from across your connected system, how to train models, how to deploy them, how to monitor them if they degrade, and then how to alert. And so you're solving each one of these problems. And as you're going, you ideally would have a system that is designed to work together, right? It knows how to do all those things. It's integrated. They all talk together. You don't have to think about how to orchestrate every individual component. Because honestly, if you think about, what do I build and what do I buy and things like that, every one of those pieces could be its own development effort. It's almost a product in itself. And do you want to build that and then maintain it, or do you want to kind of take something that's ready to go, it's designed to work together and use it? And so that's where we've worked together, and obviously ClearBlade and SAS, we've been working to make that better and better. And we were on a call, I'll leave it with this, is we were on a call with a customer, and they were describing their 5-year plan and about how to do all this. And I'm sitting there listening. I'm like, we could have you there in a couple months, a few months, right? And that's a pretty nice thing, right? So it's pretty powerful what you can do with the integration we've built between our products.
I'll pick up on that, Steve, if I could, just to think out loud. There's a couple of things that you said, Josh, about finding value quickly, and then Eric talked about the we're failing. I think a lot of the problem we have is we've treated IoT, maybe Steve, the people you were like some large 5-year ERP rollout, right? Where we want this and we've got 5 years to get this. And IoT's proven to not be that, right? The thing that we picked 5 years ago was probably written in XML, and since then we've done JSON, and now we're arguing about gRPC, right? So IoT really has to be thought of differently. You have to take Josh's point of, I need to know how to build value very, very quickly and prove that we should be in this space. And then I think the other thing people are forgetting is this is iterative, right? There's going to be new protocols. Some billionaire is going to launch more satellites. There's going to be some magical breakthrough in quantum computing. And the solution that you're looking at and the partners that you're putting together better be able to understand the life cycle. I almost want to ask the question, what did we think about the trends 3 years ago and 3 years before that? Because I think a lot of the value SAS and ClearBlade are providing is we know how we adapted to it. We know how to bring those forward, because IoT is not a moment in time or a project. It is something that's going to continue. So knowing the vendors have to keep their tools going, right? It's not necessarily the best idea just to go find a tool that matches the latest buzzword and launched a few years ago or a few weeks ago. It's more about IoT is going to run with you. You need a vendor that knows how to keep you going, because your customers and your users and your bosses are going to say, well, now I want, and now I want, and now this is available, and I want to bring this in. So when I look at the problem, I'm really trying to say, how are they going to provide edge AI in the context of today, and the flexibility to deal with quantum safe encryption at the edge and all these things that are going to come at us down the line. That's the advice I look at, Vishek, of, how do you look at these vendors going forward?
Yeah, what's the maintenance cost of this over the next 5-10 years, right? Is it our core business, right? If I'm in the HVAC business, do I need to be building a huge software development IoT team to maintain this constantly? Or should I rely on a vendor that has proven to do this over multiple types of verticals? These are the hard questions, but Aaron, you nailed it. It's very hard. It's very time consuming, and it's mostly not the core competency of these companies, right? So let's provide that software in a way that's easy to consume, and then we will stay up on it, because that's all we do is IoT and edge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think a lot of interesting and really insightful topics just got mentioned here, which I'm sure that will be very relevant for our end users as well. And one thing I would like to mention here is like Josh and Eric and Aaron just mentioned upon is democratizing AI for non-technical users. Because another thing I have noticed when I was talking to some of the end users is that many companies are hesitant to adopt AI-driven solutions because they perceive them to be too complex, especially for the non-technical teams. So I think that your combined solution really makes a lot of sense here. And I think now let's move on to another a really important topic when you have to discuss about edge computing. Like now we are seeing more companies are adopting edge computing and are moving the computational power to the edge. But as we all know that this shift is not without its challenges. Like for example, maybe ensuring consistent connectivity or handling the complexity of scaling across these diverse distributed environments. So Aaron or Steve, maybe if you could shed some light on this, that given these complex environments, what are some of the key challenges organizations face with edge computing, and perhaps some of the best practices to navigate this effectively?
Yeah, well, I'll get a little out of the AI and just talk about, how do you do edge compute? I think it's important to look at that magical little box that you've just brought in, and you're like, this is what we're going to build our company on, is to look at it of one, there's a management side. There's a, how are we going to put 1,000 of these, 10,000 of these in the field and securely connect them? How are we going to keep them up to date? How are we going to put new firmware in bits? And so there's that layer of device management and provisioning that has to happen. And it has to be, we're always going to update it. You have to treat it like a Windows machine that's going to have security vulnerabilities that you have to update, right? You just have to think that way. You can't assume it's going to be behind a firewall forever or behind an air gap forever. So that is a key provision. And then on that is the application flow. And so oftentimes people are trying to mush this stuff together, and they think they're going to use device management to do AI. And it's really separate, right? The CPU pressure and memory pressure on a device is completely different than the AI inferencing rate that we might be doing in our application data flow. And so that application flow, where we're going to do the AI, we now have to think about what is the logical behavior there? What is the permissions for the users and the devices? How are they connecting? How will we deal with the different protocols that we're going to be coming in? And then ultimately, how are we going to then move AI models that we learn on? Every bit of this has to be continually thought about in an iterative fashion of what are we going to do next? How are we going to deal with what we're going to do next, and build an architecture that supports that flexibility? That to me is the giant challenge in the room, because I mean, obviously folks like Steve have made great AI models and make better AI models. How do we constantly put Steve's brain back down into the field over and over, right? Because he's going to come up with more stuff. And so that is the edge challenge. And that's where, we're syncing and we're opening the secure connection out and the sockets and all that stuff has to go on. But that's where Edge, I think, is kind of failing folks, is they're doing one thing, one little agent, Steve point one, and we're not getting Steve two, along the way.
Yeah, and I'll tag on to that. Like,
yeah.
From a technical perspective, right? We've heard it multiple times. How do I get the subject matter expert engaged? How do I make it sufficiently easy that they can be a part of this and be the one driving it? Because ultimately they're the ones that are going to use it and need to derive value from it. And so, just the challenges of making it easier and easier to do. I think back 10 years when we started this, that we'd be doing things and we'd be like, at this point, you go out to the command prompt and write this command. And as you write all those things down, you're like, well, I've just eliminated 10% of the, folks from being able to do this, and now 30%. And we've gradually made it easier and easier to do. And then you have the breadth of capabilities, in terms of doing the end-to-end process, models, deployment. And then you get to the agility, is how do I then take what I built, package it up, and make it easy that you can take it to an edge device and deliver it. All that content, the models, getting the data ready. How do I hand that over? And so that's what we worked a lot together to simplify, because each part of that process is not easy.
Yeah, and that's not even the last mile, right, Steve? Once you get all that, then you have to manage that over time, right? Because models degrade, and again, that can't be manual. If you're going to be successful, that's got to be automated. You have to know when a model needs to be refurbished or replaced, and you need to have tracking and governance around all that over time. And again, that's all stuff that we've built into our joint offering.
Yep. And I'll add, the edge is extremely an interesting space. And so when you build a system, and let's say you have no idea that I want to use edge whatsoever, you've got to make your edge flexible enough to be able to be incorporated in that system at a later date. So then as you shift your processing between centralized and distributed, it's easy to add in these extra complexities, but you've got to make it easy to do. Flexibility is the key here. Yeah. And that management of those edges and that ability to add them into a system and have them load balance is critical. And these are things that we see as valuable. And when you spend 10 years building an edge and your cloud solution to be virtually identical, that's a powerful thing. And then you start working with partners like SAS. And to me, what was actually most exciting was the fact that Steve and his team were able to work mostly without us involved. And that was exciting. That told Aaron and I, said, well, we may have built something here that's pretty good because they don't need our involvement. And so that's what we're continuing to focus on, is tying these things together and make it easy for customers to implement.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I think we had fascinating discussions, and I think as 𝐅𝐞𝐚 just mentioned, there's something or the other constantly happening in this space. Every day there is a new thing coming up, and we can go on and on. I think, but I think we have to respect time, and I think. It was a fascinating discussion. We started with the partnership dynamics between both your companies and the unique way in which you kind of solve end user problems with ClearBlade's expertise at one end, SAS's expertise at the other end. Then we talked about the trends, the small model languages, the Gen AI part of it, and the various implications and the futuristic trends that are likely to happen in this particular space. And of course, the challenges as you bring the compute power from cloud towards the edge, from an edge computing perspective, and then when you have the AI part built on this thing. So as I said, I think we can go on talking on this subject on and on, but I think we'll have to pause. So I think it was a great discussions, and we look forward to more such discussions so that our end users can kind of get educated as the space emerges. So thank you very much, everyone, for this particular session. And Vaishak and others, maybe if you want to have some concluding comments, please feel free to do so.
I'm going to just say one last thing, because Steve said something very interesting earlier, is the ROI piece, right? Okay. I would say, look, if you're thinking about wanting to add some analytics and AI into some process in your business, give SAS and ClearBlade 3 months. We'll prove it to you. We'll get you an ROI in 3 months. I'll make Steve sweat a little bit and Aaron sweat a little bit, but we can do it in 3 months. That's kind of what we say to a lot of our customers: is don't spend years doing this stuff. What's 3 months going to cost you? Do a pilot.
You scared Steve so bad he hopped off the call.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, building on that, I guess my final thoughts is my recommendation in IoT, because I've seen many failures, is just don't go at it alone, right? At least have a conversation with us and see what we can do. I think too many organizations are trying to do too much. And when SAS built our IoT division and then subsequently started looking for partners, we looked for partners that had the same mentality as us, and that is do what you're good at, stick to your core competency. Let's pull something together that's purpose built, and that will drive time to value down for all organizations. I mentioned earlier, if you go to www.sas.com/ClearBlade, there's a landing page for our joint solution. There's a demo you can watch there. There's a couple contact me links for resources at ClearBlade and SAS. Feel free to reach out to any of us that are on the call. Happy to have a conversation with you and very interested in helping you along your IoT journey to get the most out of your investment.
Yeah. So again, thank you for an engaging and insightful discussion today. It's been fantastic to explore how Edge AI is transforming industries, and especially your partnership dynamics, and how you are helping organizations unlock the full potential of the machine data and AI capabilities. So a big thank you to our panelists, Eric, Aaron, Josh, and Steve, for sharing your valuable insights. And for our audience, I hope today's conversation provided a clear understanding of the challenges and opportunities in the edge computing, and how a combined approach to data processing and analytics can drive smarter and real-time decisions. So if in case if you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to QKS Group or the ClearBlade and SAS team. So we look forward to continuing this conversation on the future of Edge AI and its potential across industries. So thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Aaron. Thanks for having us on. Appreciate it.